statement. I believe with the consensus of the majority, we can change laws. Laws are the main thing that allows incidents like these to happen and to keep happening. Human beings will be human beings. Give us carte blanche rights with no consequences, and we will take advantage. Protect officers from prosecution, and they will become sadistic, like we saw in the case of George Floyd. The police have absolute power over blacks. And as we all know, absolute power corrupts absolutely. Decades of absolute power now needs to be rolled back. Racism must be labeled uncivilized. Media outlets, print media, radio stations, social media, or TV stations now need to be made to adhere to civilized standards with serious consequences attached. Just as we wouldn't expect a newspaper to show a completely nude person on their papers, so should carrying, implying, spreading, enabling, or publishing anything deemed to be racist should be acted on, and acted on seriously. However, although what these ignorant people say and publish does not directly kill us, they help keep those racist sentiments alive and therefore indirectly keep killing us. They also convert more and more people, more and more fair-minded folk each and every day with the biased rhetoric, which are on many occasions false. The real laws that will make a difference are laws around the protection of the black race. Let me repeat that. The real laws that would make a difference are laws around the protection of the black race. Okay, we are not an endangered species, but if we can construct laws as soon as we see it is needed to protect an animal species, then why can't we look at laws that protect blacks from police and from racism? Why can't we make it harder for an officer to believe he can do what he or she wants to a black individual? Why can't we make laws that makes an officer think twice before shooting a black person, just like they must do before pulling a gun on a white person? Why can't we put laws in place that makes a white officer see a black person the same way he sees a white person? Why can't we come up with a way to give a black person the same guarantees as a white person has? That if you comply and you are not pulling out a weapon on an officer, then you are guaranteed to live through the experience. At the moment, that is not a guarantee that we enjoy. A law that needs to be considered is one that gives citizens the right to stop or arrest a rogue officer during an incident. Another is to change the law so that the burden of proof is on the officer to prove he did nothing wrong. As foreign as this idea might sound to some, we must focus on the effect we want to achieve. We need an instant, immediate change in mentality. We need to elevate the life of a black person to equal the life of a white one. Training and retraining and video watching and being sent on ethnic appreciation courses won't cut it at this point. As blacks, we are on life support machine, on the defibrillator, and we need shock treatment and we need it now. This means thinking outside the box. I believe making the officer have to prove he did every single thing correctly will be a huge game changer. I must say though, that this is not just a problem with the police. The white race has an entitlement belief that they can do unto a black man as they choose. We remember Trayvon Martin, killed by an individual who was part white and part Hispanic. If we learned anything from that episode, it is that the same right-wing voices, the same right-wing press, those who wish things to stay just as they are, will support anyone or anything against anyone who is black. Ahmaud Arbery, he was killed by civilians, albeit the father was a police officer. But the results were the same in both situations. It took protests to get them charged. In Trayvon Martin's case, it took President Obama getting involved for the killer to be charged. You will not be surprised to know he walked free from court. So we have a public issue in general. Juries are made up of your ordinary people. I will come back to this later. The entitlement whites feel even extends to our very own countries. Take a look at an incident I want to bring to your attention, which happened in South Africa. You would think this happened during the apartheid era, but it didn't. This video will explain the entitlement issue, which has to be addressed for universal parity of the races. Please take a look.
There were tears on both sides of the courtroom in the so-called coffin case. It was a case that laid bare the ongoing racial divide in post-apartheid South Africa. On Friday, a judge sentenced Theo Jackson to 14 years and Willem Oosthuizen to 11 years in prison.
The most appalling act by the accused was to put a living person in a coffin against his will under threats of killing him.
Video shot by the men on a mobile phone led to nationwide condemnation and eventually their arrests. Victor Maloshwa says he was taking a shortcut on the men's farm when they kidnapped him, drove him to another location, forced him into a coffin, and threatened to kill him. In their defense, the farmers say Maloshwa was trespassing. They caught him stealing copper cables and said he threatened to kill their families and burn their crops. But the judge pointed out this was not the first time the men had forced someone into a coffin, and their behavior had, quote, fueled racial tensions. Analysts say this case spotlights the haves and the have-nots in South Africa, which is largely split along racial lines.
We are having to come to terms with exactly who we are as a country. We're a country that is built on racism, on cheap labor, on sexism, on patriarchy.
In sentencing the two men, the judge said they showed no remorse. Their prison sentences should send a message to others that this kind of behavior will be punished, and punished severely.
Welcome back. That's on black soil. Do you know what made a difference? The jury made a difference in this case. And the jury is what will make a difference to future court cases. We have seen white women use a call to the cops as a tool against blacks just because they think, how dare this black person challenge me? I'm about to show you a clip of one such incident in the US. This lady knew that a call to the police, even though she was in the wrong, could lead to the death of that black person. I want you to pay attention to her employer's response and action taken. If more institutions, the police, prisons, courts, schools, universities, and other institutions were to behave in this way, we would begin the long road to abolishing institutional racism. The officer now charged had 18 complaints on his name. 18. Convicted on only 2 of them. And yet he remained in place. Take a look.
In New York, a white woman who called the police on a black man bird watching in Central Park has been fired from her job. The man, named Christian Cooper, recorded part of the conflict, which all started when he asked her to follow park rules and leash her dog.
There's an African American man crying in Central Park. He's recording me and threatening myself and my dog.
After his video went viral Monday, the woman, Amy Cooper, publicly apologized, saying, quote, "I'm not a racist. I did not mean to harm that man or the African American community." On Tuesday, her employer announced it had fired her because, quote, "it does not tolerate racism of any kind." Last night, Christian Cooper told CNN he accepted her apology as sincere, but still questioned her actions.
I'm not sure if in that apology she recognizes that while she may not be or consider herself a racist, that particular act was definitely racist. She was looking for some way to get an edge in the situation, and that's where she went, and that ultimately did not help her. So, is she a racist? I can't answer that. Only she can answer that.
Christian Cooper says that as long as she keeps her dog...
Of an incident that led to 2 Atlanta police officers being fired for using excessive force against 2 college students during these weekend protests. It shows the couple being tased. We want to show you this video, but we want to warn you that it is disturbing. Now, the officers say they thought this couple was armed, but they were not. CNN's Diane Gallagher.
Welcome back. I would like us to make it much harder, much more of an offense to say or imply or insinuate or act in a racist way. When we wanted to clamp down on child pornography and pedophilia, we put a sex offenders register in place. Why can we not establish a racist offenders register? A register which will affect your employment prospects, your credit score, and even as far as your ability to get a mortgage if the area you're buying a home in insists on having a clean racist record. Same to apply when renting a property or going onto public housing waiting lists. Those known to have offended previously can atone and attend rewiring courses and be removed once a proven change in behavior and attitude is confirmed. I know the police in a vast majority of countries have rights above the normal citizen. I know in many states they are above the law. I say maintain their status. However, I believe we must counterbalance that status. I believe we must equal this special status to a special burden of proof. This is the only way a complete overhaul of the system can be avoided. This is a shortcut to rebalancing life for black people. The establishment always says, oh, it's just a few bad apples. Oh, 90